We are, again, talking about and voting on some of these egregious and offensive judicial nominees. And one of the worst that this administration has put forward is Seth Aframe. I've talked about him a good bit. You're right about that. But I think that we need to repeat this because he has been involved in two cases that I think these two cases clearly disqualify him from ever serving on a federal bench. Now, for the benefit of my fellow committee members, in case they've not heard it before, let me go through these two cases. The first case involved a criminal defendant guilty of unconscionable acts of sexual violence against a 14-year-old girl who had a hearing impairment. Think about that. Even worse, this defendant had a history of this vile conduct and had just been released from prison for sexually assaulting minors. Despite all of this, Mr. Aframe, as the prosecutor in this case, recommended a sentence far below the probation officer's suggested guidelines. It is clear that Mr. Aframe wanted a low sentence for this repeat offender who had sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl with a hearing impairment, taking her across state lines, by the way. And I want to read you why he thought there should be a lesser sentence. He wrote, and I'm quoting him, and I quote, that the low sentence will incapacitate the defendant until he is in his 60s. Hopefully, by that time, the danger that the defendant presents will have subsided. Hopefully. So hopefully, by the time the guy is in his 60s, he will not be sexually aggressive. Now, I want you to just imagine what this little girl's family must have thought when they hear that hopefully their daughter's rapist won't go back on the streets and do it again. That hopefully he is going to be too old and frail to continue raping little girls. I think this is absolutely sickening. Now, in the second case, Mr. Aframe, as the prosecutor, recommended a sentence of 60 years for a man who was found guilty of conduct that you cannot even begin to imagine. This defendant was so vile, so evil, so sick, that he created videos of himself sexually assaulting a 3-year-old girl. The details on this case are just too disgusting to even repeat aloud, but he raped a 3-year-old girl. He did this. He created videos of himself carrying out these atrocities. Think about that one. Mr. Aframe, as I've noted, recommended 60 years, but the sentencing guidelines recommendation, life in prison. Mr. Aframe himself noted in the sentencing memo this very fact. Frankly, for Mr. Aframe to have recommended anything less than life in prison for this depraved human being is disgusting. So for the sake of men, women, and children around this country who are survivors of sexual assault, I urge all of my colleagues to join me in voting no on Mr. Aframe's nomination.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. There are several facts which you did not mention, which I'd like to